I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
We are going where no man has gone before, to unlock the secrets of the universe. It's pretty incredible.
Welcome back to another edition of The Best Movie You Never Saw. This week, we're taking a look at Joe Dante's Explorers. Now, they sure don't make movies for kids like they used to. I know that makes me sound really old, but the 1980s saw the release of more live-action family fare from major studios that adults could actually watch and enjoy than we've seen in the last 20 years combined. Throughout the early 80s, we got movies like E.T. the Extraterrestrial, The Never-Ending Story, which actually does end, and of course Gremlins, which led the way for The Goonies, The Last Starfighter, Stand By Me, which is my pick for the greatest kids movie ever, despite all the F-bombs and the R rating, and of course Labyrinth, starring David Bowie, and David Bowie's Codpiece, which gave me nightmares as a child. Into that mix of nostalgic favorites and iconic flicks, there are the hidden gems that many of us overlook, and one in particular was 1985's Explorers. Directed by Joe Dante and starring Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix in their big screen debuts, Explorers is the perfect mix of adventure and science fiction with solid special effects that hold up almost 40 years later. A box office bomb upon its initial release, Explorers was released at the absolute worst possible time. Now, you would think a prime July weekend would have been an easy way to make money for a film targeted at families, but in 1985, Explorers hit the multiplexes just 1 week after a little movie you may have heard of called Back to the Future. Yeah, it did pretty well. July 12th also happened to be the same weekend as the telecast of Live Aid. And I mean, why would you go see a movie when you could stay home and watch Freddie Mercury and Queen sing Radio Gaga, Radio Gaga? And of course, that concert remains one of the most watched events in broadcast history. Opening poorly, Explorers ended up grossing just under $10 million when it ceased its theatrical run. While international markets didn't release the film until December of that year, the damage was already done and it was a lost cause. So how did a film that grossed less than half of its budget end up becoming something of a cult classic? Home video, of course. The good old video store provided a market for fans of director Joe Dante to create a buzz around Explorers that it has retained to this day. Take a look at the overall positive reviews online, and you can see why renowned critics like the New York Times' Janet Maslin called the movie, of all the Spielberg-inspired fantasy films afoot at the moment, Explorers is by far the most eccentric. It's charmingly odd at some moments, and just plain goofy at others. Yes, Explorers is light and silly, but that's also why it's such a fun and enjoyable movie. Explorers' legacy is so strong that there's been a remake in development all the way since 2014, which was aiming for a tone and style similar to the found footage Project Almanac. The latest development came in 2018 when No Time to Die director Cary Fukunaga and the Green Knight helmer David Lowery were attempting to make a television series based on the property for Paramount. The fact that two such acclaimed filmmakers would want to continue the Explorers' legacy should tell you why this movie is one of the best you have never seen. Urban legends persist that Explorers began as a script that studios wanted due to the scene of kids flying through the sky on bicycles appealed to Steven Spielberg, of course because he had a similar scene in E.T.
We had something to sit in. All three of us could fly around in this thing. We can look on top of the girls' gym.
The original plan was for the movie to be directed by Wolfgang Petersen, who impressed the studio with his work on 1984's The Never-Ending Story. Petersen was initially on board but wanted to film Explorers in his native Germany before leaving the project to take on 20th Century Fox's Enemy Mine, another potential best movie you never saw. Paramount then turned to Joe Dante. Dante, of course, was coming off of the huge hit film Gremlins, but was initially reluctant as he felt the script was not quite finished. He reflected during a 2008 screening of the film, saying that the movie lacked a third act. The casting of the film introduced us to the talents of Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix. Phoenix, of course, was originally set to play the character Darren, but what happened was that Jason Presson was brought on board, and Dante and his team felt that Phoenix was still strong enough to remain in the cast, just not as Darren, so he was moved into the role of Wolfgang. Phoenix struggled in the rehearsals for the film with many of the pop culture references, having grown up in an isolated commune in South America. And for more on that crazy upbringing, you should read the book Last Night at the Viper Room, because man, it was wild. Production, of course, was troubled from the outset. According to Joe Dante, Paramount leadership changed while the movie was filming, which accelerated their schedules. The paint on the sets was wet, and when the kids stepped into the spaceship, they sunk into cement because it wasn't dry. With special effects provided by Industrial Light and Magic, there remained challenges with makeup effects on screen which had to be adjusted on the fly. After a chaotic shoot, Dante completed his initial cut of the film in the spring of 1985. Paramount wanted to release the movie within months of the initial cut to try and make as much money as possible. But this resulted in tons of footage being excised, including subplots and characters. Scenes had to be redubbed to bring closure to plot lines and sequences, which altered the tone of the film. According to Dante, the film was simply dumped. Various cuts of the film have appeared over the years, including an alternate end credit sequence, a brief daydream at the end that was restored on home video, and 2 sequences involving a gang of bullies that are found on the Netflix version of the movie, oddly enough. Joe Dante has searched for the missing scenes over the years, but they are likely lost. Dante is supportive of the cult following the movie, but says that the Explorers that we got is not the Explorers he intended. Because he said that the problem is, the movie that you see is not the movie he wanted to make. It's the movie he got to make up to a certain point, but then had to stop, so it's hard for him to look at because it's not the film he quite had in mind. A cross between Stand By Me, Batteries Not Included, and E.T., Explorers is such a fun movie with a great score by the late great Jerry Goldsmith that it more than earns a spot alongside Dante's own Gremlins, The Burbs, and my favorite, Inner Space. Crammed with Easter eggs and references to Star Wars, This Island Earth, War of the Worlds, and even Looney Tunes, which of course Dante would direct a feature film version of, but let's not get into Looney Tunes back in action here.
What's up, Doc?
Explorers is very much aimed at capturing the wonderment of childhood. The 3 main characters are dreamer Ben Crandall, played by an impossibly young Ethan Hawke, nerdy Wolfgang Mueller, played by River Phoenix, although who would ever believe the coolest guy ever, River Phoenix, as a nerd, and spunky Darren Woods, played by Jason Presson. Ben has a crush on Laurie Svensson, played by Amanda Peterson of Can't Buy Me Love fame, and is tormented by bully Steve Jackson. Other recognizable cast members include Mary Kate Place as Ben's mother and James Cromwell as Wolfgang's father. Gremlins actor Dick Miller also appeared in the cast as Charlie Drake. They bond over ideas for circuit boards and microchips that came to Ben in his dreams. When Wolfgang builds one, they realize it can generate a bubble that can create flight. Repurposing an old tilt-a-wheel, the two begin to assemble and test their spacecraft. Now I want to pause right here and take you back to my childhood. Like many of you, the movies I watched influenced my perspective on the world and how I played with my friends. I used to pretend I had a lightsaber like Luke Skywalker or that I was He-Man or G.I. Joe, but Explorers showed 3 kids who were not dissimilar from myself using the stuff around their homes to build a working spaceship. Before seeing this movie, I would take my toys and repurpose them as navigation and weapon system, but seeing 3 kids not much older than me doing the same thing and then actually leaving the atmosphere imbued my imagination with even more wonder. Heck, looking back at the movie now, I still want to build a ship with a speak and spell, oxygen tanks, and whatever else I have lying around. That said, of course, when I was a teenager, I saw Weird Science, and instead of building a spaceship, I decided that I wanted to use a computer to build Kelly LeBrock, because why wouldn't I? Anyways, back to Explorers. The kids' ship named Thunder Road after the Springsteen song of the same name takes them into an alien vessel controlled by Hawke and Neek. Hawke is played by veteran character actor Robert Picardo, who of course is a favorite of Joe Dante's, and cameos as Starkiller during the drive-in sequence. They speak in pop culture references gathered through enjoying human TV signals. The kids realize that these aliens are really just kids themselves out for a joyride to escape their parents. We can all relate. Eventually, the aliens and humans part ways, with the ending leaving open the possibility of further adventures that, of course, never came. The final act of Explorers is certainly the weakest part of the film, and I've always been curious as to what Joe Dante's initial cut would have looked like, but it still works beautifully as a piece of escapist entertainment. I still love Jerry Goldsmith's fantastical score, as well as the 3 80s tunes in the movies from Red 7, Night Ranger, and the late, great Robert Palmer. Explorers was quickly forgotten when it hit theaters because it seemed so familiar. In retrospect, the movie does not delve into anything we have not seen before, but benefits from fast pacing and a smart sense of humor. Explorers never talks down to the audience, nor does it make these kids lesser characters just because they're kids. It's evident even in this movie that Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix were destined for greatness, and this all makes River Phoenix's untimely passing all that harder to accept. There is a core of a classic movie within Explorers that we unfortunately lost due to studio interference, but what remains is definitely still a worthy cult classic and assuredly one of the best movies you never saw. And of course, if you like this kind of content, make sure to click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company and we appreciate all of your support.